Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the High School Blitz, brought to you by the Austin American-Statesman. I'm Rick Cantu, joined by Thomas Jones, as always. And Thomas, let's start from the top like we do every week after a wild weekend of high school football in the area playoffs. Who do you give a game ball to?
Hey, let's go to the biggest game of this past weekend. That was Judson and Lake Travis at Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium. Garrett Wilson, the Lake Travis receiver, he's got offers from all over the place except Texas. I'm not sure, but that's another topic. 7 catches for 129 yards. Now, on the surface, that doesn't look great, but 3 of his 4 touchdowns came in the second half when Lake Travis needed it the most. Big players step up in big games at big moments, and that's what Wilson did. He gets my game ball.
And the Judson coach wants him to forego his senior year of high school to go straight to the NFL, by the way.
I think Westlake's Todd Dodge might agree with that, right?
I think right now. I'm going to go with Cade Stover, the outstanding receiver at Wimberley. Wimberley, of course, now 11-1, still alive in the playoffs. 3 touchdown catches, 1 interception, and returned a punt for another touchdown. 52-24 over Sinton, so they're alive in the playoffs, and Cade's actually had a great year all the way around.
All-around player.
But this is the first time we've given him a game ball. Let me ask you, Thomas, there were a lot of good games over the weekend. Some won, some lost, obviously. What game surprised you the most?
You know what really did is the undefeated Tigers out of Dripping Springs. Last year, if you remember, they got to the regional finals and got beat by a really, really good Richmond Foster team. Now what happens? They meet Richmond Foster again in the second round. This Foster team was not as good. They have 3 losses on the season, but Dripping Springs lost to them 28-21. Look, Trevor Greenman threw 2 interceptions for Drip, which is the same amount he had all season. They had a field goal blocked. They turned the ball over deep in Richmond Foster territory. You can't make mistakes at this second round of the playoffs, and Drip just made a few too many mistakes. That surprised me.
My big surprise was San Marcos. Not that they lost. I thought they could have won, but I knew that they were not favored. Yeah. But to lose 47-3 after they had been scoring lights out for almost the entire season, 3 points. They only had 72 yards total offense, and Prudencio Calderon and Jamon Johnson been going crazy over other opponents all year.
Well, I was at that game, and Westfield has a kid named Keandre Coburn, who's 6'1", 330. He's already pledged to UT as a defensive tackle. That's a full-grown man on that Westfield defense, and they've been doing that to everyone all season.
And finally, Thomas, what team still alive in the playoffs do you think is the most improved team from during the season till now?
I'm going to tell you, they're a little overlooked. The Hendrickson Hawks, they lost back-to-back games in September to Cedar Ridge and Lake Travis. They gave up combined 91 points. Since then, they've only given up more than 22 points once in the last 7 games. The Hawks defense is playing great football right now. They have a tough matchup against Garland Saxe this weekend, but don't bet against that defense. I mean, the secondary, Clayton Perrine, Tobias Harris, Miles Brooks, tremendous players. Hendrickson.
I'm going to go with the not so obvious, but kind of obvious. I was at the Lake Travis Judson game at the beginning of the season. It was 65-45, they lost, and the game actually wasn't even as close as the score might indicate. They were thrashed. Yep. And the defense for Lake Travis at the time, I thought, this team is not going to win, 7 games this year. Well, all of a sudden, they're 10-2, and they've won 10 games, at least 10 games, 5 years in a row. They've really turned it on, and I just happened to be at the Lake Travis Judson game this past weekend, one of the best games I've seen all year. To hold Judson to 13 points in the second half just shows you how much they have improved, and so that's why I think Lake Travis is the most improved team.
Yeah, and we saw it a few weeks ago when they lost to Westlake. But the defense played very well, held a potent Westlake team to 21. That was a good sign for Lake Travis, and they're building on that.
And that'll do us for another edition of the High School Blitz, brought to you by the Austin American-Statesman. Thank you for Thomas T.J. Jones. I'm Rick Cantu. We'll see you later in the week when we pick the big games for this weekend in the third round of the playoffs. But until then, we hope your favorite team wins.